listening to the Food Truck Empire podcast, where we talk about great food, big trucks, and how to launch a profitable food truck business. Here's your host.
Yeah, welcome to 2014. Food Truck Empire is back and coming at you with more brand new episodes. Today, we've got a super cool interview with Stephanie Gans, who's going to be sharing how to take a menu item from your food truck and transform that into a wholesale product that can be sold in grocery stores or farmers markets. Not only can this create a new revenue stream for your business, but create a more consistent source of income for your business as well. Best of all, creating your own product might be easier than you think, especially if you already own a food truck or restaurant. But first, we got to get into some news brought to you by our awesome sponsor, foodstart.com. Well, applause effect, please. We've got a new iTunes review from SmugMug, who says this: current truck driver, former ice cream truck operator, future ice cream truck operator. I've listened to your podcast. I bought a prepackaged ice cream truck a couple months ago. We'll be running it in Colorado like I did 10 years ago, working on buying a hot dog cart too. The only problem I have with the podcast is that it seems almost all of the guests you have on either have had a significant cash flow or has friends or relatives helping them out. I am starting from zero cash, have been driving a truck since June over the road with hardly any time off, still having to drive 4,000 miles a week just so I can get the truck road worthier. I gave up my apartment and put everything in storage. I would like to hear from a guest who actually has to struggle and work for their truck and not have it handed to him. Well, first of all, thank you for taking the time to post this, SmugMug. I really appreciate it. And it sounds like you have definitely sacrificed a lot to take control of your life and get your food truck up and running. And I know there are a lot of food truck owners in the same boat as you. And I just want to take a moment to talk about that because I think it raises a really good point. I feature a lot of people that are talking about the positive aspects of operating a business, but there are also downsides and struggles to starting your own food truck. So I'm definitely taking your advice to heart, and I appreciate your comment. Before the new year, I went into the think tank and really took a week to just figure out some ways that I could make this podcast more interesting and more engaging to the listeners. And one thing specifically that I'd like to do is get more folks involved in this podcast so that you're not just hearing me jabber on, do the intro by myself and then listen to an interview afterwards. So here's what I came up with. I've added a voicemail number that you can use to dial into. Give your feedback about the show, give a tip about what you're doing to operate your business, whatever you want to do. The number will take you straight to voicemail, and if you mess up when you're trying to leave the voicemail message, no big deal, just call back in and retry later. I think this will be a really cool way to get more people involved in the show and also get more voices played on this podcast. And when you do call in, make sure that you leave the name of your food truck and even the website that you represent. Now, if you want to call in, the number is 206-309-9310. That's 206-309-9310. And I'm going to post that number up in the show notes as well so you can call in if you've got something to say. I'd love to hear from you. The second thing that I want to get is photos of you listening to the podcast, whether you're in a truck at home, if you're listening to your iPad or just cooking on the truck. I'm super interested in hearing how you're listening to the show. And again, if you just snap a real quick picture of yourself on the earbuds and listening to the show, I'll make sure and feature you on the show too. I think that'd be a really cool way to hear all the different places and locations that people are listening to this show. So that's just a couple things I've got planned for 2014. I'm really pumped up about it. But with that being said, let's dive straight into our main course with Stephanie Gans. Okay, we've got Stephanie Gans on the phone with us today. I found out about Stephanie from trolling the Rome conference list of speakers and reached out to her, and thankfully she was kind enough to respond, and I thought she had some really interesting topics that she discussed. I know she's an expert in crowdfunding and setting food prices, and basically I guess I'd define you as a food truck consultant, but I'll let you correct me if that's not right. But Stephanie, why don't before we get into the main interview questions, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, add some color to your background, and tell us just how you got involved with the food truck industry in the first place.
Sure, I absolutely will. Thank you for reaching out. I'm excited to chat with you. I started out cooking in a fine dining setting when I was an undergraduate at William & Mary, and decided that I actually wanted to start culinary school when I graduated. So I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and did that. And when I finished culinary school, I worked in restaurants for probably about 7 years before I eventually came to Richmond, Virginia, which is where I live now. And I cooked at one last restaurant here in Richmond, and then I went to work for a nonprofit where I helped women start food-based businesses. And the nonprofit I worked for was a women's business center. It was grant funded, and a lot of the programs were specifically designed for low-income, minorities, people who didn't have access to traditional forms of starting businesses, maybe access to capital or education pieces that they needed regarding business planning and one-on-one coaching and things like that. So that's what the nonprofit was there for. And they realized that they had a lot of clients. Basically, 1 out of every 3 phone calls was someone who wanted to start a food-based business. And it's such an easy point of access for a lot of people because people feel confident with their own recipes. And they want to share that with people, and they want to build a business around it. So that's exactly what we did. And we had a shared commercial space that we operated for a little bit of time where people could sort of launch their businesses a little bit and kind of get into a couple of farmers markets, maybe a specialty shop, or start catering, whatever the case may be. And that was great, and that is where I met Victoria DeRoche, and she had the idea to start a business based around a Neapolitan-style pizza dough. And she would have these great pizza parties at her house, and everyone would come and bring their favorite toppings, and it was just this great communal kind of experience where she would make the dough. Everybody would dress it up however they wanted, and then they would fire it in a wood-fired oven in her backyard. And so she roped me in with all that awesomeness, and we started Pizza Tonight, and that was about 3 years ago, and we've grown from just selling our products wholesale to actually having a mobile wood-fired oven, which is sort of what got me into the mobile food world. And I had worked with a couple of clients who were interested in starting food carts and food trucks prior to Victoria, but once I came on board as the first hire of Pizza Tonight, I actually got the real world experience of, going through the process of getting the business license and the peddler's license and, figuring out the taxes and things like that. So I really got the sort of ground experience. I call it sort of my master's program because I really got that like day in and day out, making pizza dough, making pizzas, and having to, set up catering jobs and things like that. And now in our 3rd year, we're booking up a year in advance for weddings and things like that. So it's been really interesting to watch sort of the changes from, when we first started selling pizzas at farmers markets to now there are food truck courts at, our local breweries and, hundreds of people come out over the course of, the season and get to experience our food and all the other food trucks and food carts in Richmond. And it's really awesome to watch.
I guess I look at a lot of consultants, they've got, a lot of knowledge, but maybe they haven't actually helped launch a business of any type. But it sounds like you've definitely gone through the process of building a business and starting a wholesale pizza business and getting, your hands dirty, so to speak, with the marketing and applying the information that you've learned over time.
Yeah, absolutely. It has really sort of strengthened the coaching that I've been able to do for people and just given me a different perspective. And it's really great to always keep learning. Like the for example, the crowdfunding piece, that was in our second year of business when we decided that we wanted to run a Kickstarter campaign and try to buy some equipment for the business. And so, we immersed ourselves in that process. And so that allowed me to add that to something that I feel, qualified to talk about, and has since helped other people with their own crowdfunding applications, and really been able to sort of use that experience to help them. So it's been really great for that part of what I do.
Well, that's definitely an up-and-coming need, crowdfunding strategists especially. I think that's going to only get bigger and bigger over the next few years and get more, more niche specific, I think. I think you're going to not just see Kickstarter, but a lot more, this is the crowdfunding site for photography, and I think we're already seeing that. Very awesome explanation. So, obviously, I know you're already familiar with the mobile food industry, and you provide a lot of regular trainings that help food truck owners secure food funding through crowdfunding platforms. And I know you've done work in the past with setting food prices, helping new owners to determine what they should set their prices at so that they ensure a profit over time. But today, we're planning to lock in on a topic that you recommended and I thought was really, really cool, which is creating a wholesale product for your menu. And by creating a wholesale product, I'm assuming that you mean that creating a food product that you could sell in like a store or a local grocery store. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, that is what I'm talking about.
Very cool. So something like that, putting up, in your experience, you have put, it sounds like a Pizza Tonight. You started a business that sold wholesale pizza into stores. But this seems like something to me, Aaron, obviously I've never done anything like this before, but it just seems like something to me like a very intimidating project to embark on. So can this even work with an average food truck? And obviously you've got a really good example with Pizza Tonight, but why don't you just tell us about that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. I think that it's a natural fit because, when you're running a food truck or a food cart, you have daily production that you're responsible for. So you know that you're producing at a certain amount regardless. And you've already gone through an inspection process of some kind. It's usually a city health department inspection. And what that means is that you're already operating above board. You're doing things the way that the regulatory bodies, who are the people deciding whether or not you can sell things, are typically going to respect. So for our example, if the health department has inspected us and then the Department of Agriculture inspects us, they sort of see that the other is involved and they have a little bit more confidence in just our ability to do a good job. And I think that makes the inspection process, which is in my mind the most intimidating part of the process for most entrepreneurs, it makes it a little bit less intimidating. You have to have your kitchen space regardless of whether or not you can set up your mobile food business, whether it's a food truck court getting canceled because of rain or a catering job falling through. If you're not hitting certain, monetary goals, then you can't pay your bills. You can't keep the lights on. Having a wholesale side to your business can allow you to sort of regulate through, weather or just slower periods in terms of, catering jobs and things like that. So it's a good way to maintain sort of even numbers across the board if you can secure some wholesale accounts that are capable of working with you. And I think that's something that becomes a sort of another piece of the puzzle, which is that you have to do your deliveries and you have to uphold your responsibilities to your retailers, and you also have to fulfill your obligations as a mobile food business. So you just have to make sure that you have the staff and the resources to manage both.
Yeah, totally. No, I love that. And I love the point that you make about this is a really good way to get more consistent earnings for your business, because I know that especially, I live in the Midwest, so the weather fluctuates a lot out here, and I know that just weather and, having rain. Some summers will have a lot of rain, some summers will be really dry and it'll be perfect the whole time. But from what I understand, the average food truck owner's income can fluctuate.